So, welcome to the London Food Network podcast, powered by Embrace AI Consultancy. I'm your host, Sebastian Candelon, founder of the Fresh Fish Shop and Embrace AI Consultancy, where we help food and drink businesses scale smarter through automation and AI. This podcast is about real conversations with people shaping the future of food and drink. It's about founders, innovators, and makers who are creating meaningful brands with purpose. Today, I'm joined by Monte, Burrow and Kevin Larkai, founders of Blackleaf Vodka, the world's first premium organic vodka distilled with sustainability and purity at its core. Born in Cognac in France and crafted with precision, Blackleaf represents a new generation of spirits, brands which are ethical, conscious, and uncompromising in quality. Today we're going to talk to both Monty and Kevin and understand their journey from concept to creation, what it takes to launch a spirits brand in an extremely competitive global market, and how you're building a business that balances craftsmanship with modern growth. So, I hope I got that right.
That was a well written introduction. We're gonna have to take you on the road with us. Thanks for having us,
Nice,
Sebastian.
nice.
Thank you.
That's what we do, man. That's what we do. We bring you guys on board and we do the best we can. And hopefully we'll educate the public on the beauty of running a business and all the challenges it kind of brings with it. So, tell me, guys, what's the story? Where did it start? How did it start? And where are we?
So, Kevin, I'll jump in. I'll give the brief version, then I'll let you give kind of the longer version, right? So, here's the short version. Guy meets another guy who has a vodka. Vodka is great. They come together and they say, "Let's take over the world." That's the short version. But
Nice.
obviously,
I like it.
obviously, it's a lot more to it than that. I met Kevin, and literally a spark was ignited from a product that he had, and we were literally in the same space of let's see if we can create something special with this. But I'll literally yield to Kevin to talk a little bit about how the actual product came to be, and then we can share a little bit about what took us from that spark to where we're at now.
Nice. Like it.
Yeah, I'd say sort of the genesis of all of this was being naive, right? Being naive and being a
Yeah,
dreamer.
that's
So
good honesty, man. I like your honesty on that.
so my background is in finance, so didn't have a clue about, CPG, definitely didn't have a clue about spirits, but I always felt like we could shape the future of everything that we consume. Again, that whole dreaming aspect, believing in kind of our imagination. So that interest was always there for me to do something, but it didn't really take off until I was on vacation in Cognac, France. Long story short, I met a master craftsman and the light bulb moment kind of went off and we decided to create something. And at the time, we were pioneers in really believing in organic, right? And we felt that was the future, leaning into organic, leaning into sustainable, but doing it in a fresh way. So that was kind of the fun product part. And then you get punched in the face with business, right?
Several times.
But obviously, what you do when you get punched is you got to duck it and punch back, right? So
Yeah, big time, man. Absolutely.
we're punching back with a team, right? So partner with Monte and kind of we're on that journey to build this thing.
Tell me, because I know your organic is clearly like a great kind of tagline, really, for especially a spirit, because I can't think of anything that's organic. Maybe wines. You get organic or biodynamic wines, right? But I've never really seen, especially in the spirit world, anything organic. So what's that about? And why organic? Is this like an accident, or was that was there intention behind that, or how did that work out?
I would say this, like sometimes it's so easy just to strip things down to its root. And I say that with no pun intended, but if you think about products, you think about produce, if you go to your local store or whatever the case may be, going to a place where you can get some groceries or some fruit. If someone offered you, Sebastian, an apple and they said, "Here's a nice juicy apple," and we used all types of pesticides and chemicals and things in it that you would probably shy away from ever trying to touch to grow this apple. I have an apple over here, just as juicy. None of that stuff was in it. Which one would you choose, right? And nobody in their right mind would ever say, "I'll choose the one with the pesticides and the chemicals," right? But a lot of times people don't know that those options exist. So if you think about it, even though it's alcohol, whether it's the grapes that are the core component of a wine, or for us, we use wheat to produce our vodka, that wheat that ingrown material
That's what
has to be grown in soil. And we try to use unhindered soil, right? No herbicides, no pesticides, no chemicals. So it's a situation where it's better in, better out. And a lot again, like you said, a lot of people don't know that there are options to have such type of processes in the spirits world, but there are. And we do that because we knew it was the right thing to do. It was the better choice, and it was an option that if people were given, they would take.
Yeah, man. I mean, in a extremely competitive market. I mean, especially with vodka, and you're competing with some very well-established brands that have been around for a long, long time, and vodka's in all kinds of price points as well, from your kind of bottom to the very top, right, with your Grey Goose and whatnot. So yeah, I think also in my experience of working with organic, because we sell organic products as well in the seafood business that I run, is that it also comes with a premium. And yes, you can make more. Well, the profit is probably about the same, right? But because it's a higher price point, your profit per bottle, I guess, is better as well. So it just makes it more worthwhile.
Right. And I mean, even on that note, right, when you think about premium, people, what they've been doing in the spirit space is they'll just put some story behind it. We just stole it
Mm.
a million times,
Yeah, some actor like
right.
George Clooney, maybe.
A gaudy cap on it. And that's
Yeah,
the expression of premium. So for us, it's, how can we actually offer something that is better, that something that is more intentional? And that's
yeah,
our
right.
version of premium. So the math is still mathing, but we just decided substance over just, the opposite.
Yeah, smoke screens and mirrors, right? Essentially. I mean, a lot of the stuff out there is marketing, and what you're saying is that your authenticity, the integrity of the product and its purpose is the real value, rather than some clever marketing campaign or overplayed celebrity of some sort to endorse it.
Right. Exactly.
And we let the product speak for itself, right? So even leaning back into the whole organic piece, again, a lot of people may not know what organic means, what it feels like, or what it should feel like. Their experience with organic is either very low tier, meaning they think of brown paper labels, dingy, dusty. They think it's earthy. They think it has no flavor, whether that's literal flavor or experiential flavor, right? But we wanted to break that myth. Organic can be sexy. That's one of our taglines, making organic sexy.
Nice.
So it's not just about having a great liquid, but we have a very aspirational, approachable bottle where people look at this and like, wow, look at that. That is a sexy bottle, and they taste it and they're hooked. Organic does not have to be something that's dingy and dusty. It can be something that's a lot more aspirational, and that's what we're out there proving.
Nice, nice. I mean, we're gonna have to go back a little bit now because I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. I want to understand a bit more. So, with the vodka and the origins, and of course, having an idea is one thing, right? Everybody has an idea. Everyone. How many ideas have you heard from your friends, family, brothers? Everyone has an idea, but very few make that idea into something tangible. So, describe that process. How did it go from idea to actually getting it, into the market, and what did that look like? What did you have to do to get into market?
Yeah, I mean, so it's almost, to Monte's point, it's like two life cycles, right? So to physically get the product out there, again, it kind of goes back to the whole being naive thing. There's so many hoops that you have to jump through. The fact that, the regulation, there's a lot
Yeah.
of regulation on wine and spirits. And then if you even double click into that, the fact that it's organic, puts another layer of regulation.
Yeah.
It was YouTube University, researching, asking questions, putting in an application, getting a rejection and the reasons why, and chasing another path. But I think ultimately perseverance is the key, right? If you want something to exist, you need to put in the work. You need to do the learning that is necessary. And I think that's the process that we went through. The product came about. But I would say the second pass where we really started building a brand, where Monte and I joined forces, that one was with a little bit more clarity, right? Because we had the industry expertise and we knew we had a phenomenal product. So it was just staging it. Okay, these are our goals. This is where we want to get to. How do we systematically grow the brand to that point?
But did you have any experience in this industry before?
Me, I didn't. So I mean, again, it's a school of hard knocks, right? So
Yeah.
you use, self distribution. You're learning, as you're going store by store. So you kind of
Yeah.
just dig in and figure it out.
Nice. Nice. I think the naive part of setting up, especially your first business, is actually a huge advantage because, like you say, if you actually knew some of the shit you'd have to deal with along the way, perhaps you wouldn't have gone for it, right?
Right, right.
I,
But yeah, right. Go ahead,
I was
Monte.
just gonna say it's funny because my background is primarily in the alcohol industry, and I think one of the first conversations I ever had with Kevin was, "Why in the world did you get started in the alcohol?" Because I know how
Right.
crazy this industry could be. So it's kind of funny how we even got together.
Well, I guess you're the yin and the yang, right? It's that balance, you know?
Absolutely.
What? Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's a good partnership. I always wish that I had a partner and someone that's more finance led maybe, or someone that's a little bit more grounded. I seem to be the one that comes up with the crazy ideas and just gets on with it. And sometimes you need a little bit of a sensible person, I guess, or someone to just balance that out a little bit more.
Well,
Yep.
sometimes the crazy ideas are the hallmarks of being on the right path, to be quite honest with you. Because if everybody, you know that saying, if everybody else would do it, they would do it. So having a little bit of that naivete, a little bit of that craziness is actually extremely helpful because it'll do the impossible.
Do you know, I tell my kids that all the time, and I know it's a cliche, right? But at school, remember what it's like. Everybody tries to be like everyone.
Hmm.
No one wants to be different. It's very difficult to grow up, especially these days. I imagine must be even harder than when we were kids. And I tell my kids, listen, at the end of the day, you need to be yourself at all
Yeah,
costs because
Right.
the people that are successful, I'm telling you now, the people that actually make it are never the ones that fit in with the mold.
that's a
They're
fact.
always the ones that are unique, that go for it, and use that fuel of being a little bit different to actually do amazing things. So it's a lesson that I like to teach people, especially the younger generations. And I think getting into food, drink, hospitality, it's a zero entry point kind of industry. Anyone can come in as well, and in that industry, you can create any career, business, you can create any life you want. It's nice to kind of share these stories of how people came around with their idea and their journey. So yeah, good on you. And Monty, you especially then, because if you've worked in the alcohol industry already, you understand full well what the challenges were going to be and the kind of competition in the market and the hustling you probably have to do, right, to get yourselves distribution, to get yourselves the right licensing, I mean, you tell me, how difficult was that to set up?
It's a very dog eat dog world. It really is because, as you said, a lot of people think they can do it, and a lot of people try to do it, but doing it and doing it well are two very different things, right?
It's good to know
Being
that.
able to navigate the minefield, if you will, is extremely important and especially starting a alcohol business and spirits in the United States because the U.S. in itself has a lot of regulations that other countries may not have. So it's not as easy as if I wanted to launch a water or juice company. It's so highly regulated. It's so what's the word? It's one of those industries where a lot of people have relationships that have been forged for several years. So it's hard to get into certain networks within it because you have to have distribution partners and they typically lock in with the big boys. Here you are, a startup or a
Right.
smaller company trying to enter in. How do you set yourself up to be exceptional and worthy? It's a lot of things that can make a person want to pull their hair out. But
Mhm.
again, it's very satisfying if you have a purpose and a direction. And I think with Kevin and I, we were very purposeful with saying, you know what, we deserve to be here. We are here. We have a unique proposition that the people love. Now let's just keep carving our way into this space.
Well, that was going to be my next thing because I mean, obviously, with you guys gaining more traction globally, how are you currently building that kind of brand awareness, and how do you approach marketing in a space dominated by much larger players and much more established? Like, how do you guys carve your way through this market share to well make an impression and grow that business?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, it's about recruiting people, recruiting consumers, and retaining the ones you have. But the reality is purpose based routing. And what I mean by that is our brand starts with a purpose, and that purpose ladders around celebrating the human spirit. So everything we do, how we show up, where we show up, who we collaborate, who we partner with, it's always tapped into that through line of connecting back to somehow in some way, shape, or form celebrating that human spirit. So, you know, keeping our eyes on the prize as we're growing the brand, it helps us to differentiate ourselves. And as you start to differentiate yourself from a brand standpoint, that shows up. That shows up in conversations, whether we leading those conversations or people are having those conversations in rooms that we're not in. When people are going into stores and the gatekeepers, the buyers or the barkeeps, they are talking about us because they see the authenticity that the brand shows. And then, again, everything ladders back to that quality of the product. So without having a quality product, it's all for naught. So, we're very, very focused on staying purpose led and leading also with quality in what we offer.
And just
And
just to add,
yeah, go on. Sorry, Kevin, go on.
just to add on that, at the end of the day, you've got tools, tactics, and all of these things, right? At the core of it all, it is you talking to either one customer or you talking to one decision maker at a bar or a restaurant. And as you unpack what it is, and Monte pretty much said this, as you unpack what it is that you're offering, it needs to make sense. Because a lot of times, as brand owners, I always say it's an egotistical thing, right? You're excited, you're drinking your own Kool-Aid, like, oh man,
Yeah, of course.
but it's not about you, right? It's about the problems.
Yeah,
It's about how
absolutely.
connecting with people. For us, yes, you've got so much competition, but we see that day in and day out when we have this singular focus of connecting with one person, one gatekeeper, and we unpack who it is that we are. It resonates, differentiates, they commit, they get excited, and that's what keeps us going.
So I mean, you've discussed a lot about kind of bars and the food service side of things, hospitality, I guess. And, do you guys sell online? Do you sell to stores? Like, can you pick up your bottle from your local liquor store? Like, what's the distribution like for getting your product to market? Is it purely bars, restaurants, clubs?
Yeah, so I mean, the industry for us breaks out into on and off premise, right? So where you're consuming on premises, so bars, restaurants, hotels, and off premises, which are retail accounts. So we're probably about 70-30
Okay.
retail, 30, and then there's direct to consumer is a term that's thrown around a lot, but in this space, it's not really that, right? It's basically the traditional on and off premise, and you've got a layer of technology over it. So, yes, we do some quote unquote e-commerce direct to consumer,
Yeah.
but ultimately that's just coming out of the on premise, the retail channel.
And what does the future hold? Where do you see the brand going in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's we've done what I would consider a successful pilot stage. So again, going back into we're not building this for our egos, we're building this for consumers. Really testing and learning what's working, what isn't working. Is this something that has a lane? Should we even exist? Right.
Yeah, right.
And I
Well, it's
think
good to ask those questions, like you say, because otherwise a lot of people just keep driving and driving it, and it's not going anywhere, and they just they don't realize that.
right. And before I get, there was always something I say, it's like, you're either growing and you're dying. And you could die
Yeah.
over 20 years. So if you're not asking yourself the right questions, you could be wasting the better years of your life, right? So again, we've really been understanding what works, what doesn't. And now with kind of those learnings, that reassurance from the market, we're doubling down, raising a seed round to really elevate and take this brand to the next level. So I would
Nice,
say over the next 12, we're closing our round out shortly. And then it's really, implementing our full marketing plan and kind of scaling from there.
nice,
Yeah,
nice. Full speed ahead.
and I was just going to add to that, it's intentional scaling, right? So over the next 6 to 12 months, it's not just being in a space where we can be because we can be, but being extremely intentional about where we should be and then showing up in that space and taking over that space, to be quite honest with you. So we don't want to be in a market because, hey, we could turn it on, but in reality, you turn it on, but it gets stale. How can we truly show and own that space? So whether that's growing into, I mean, again, looking from a lens of the United States, whether that's growing out towards the West, going towards the Californias and into those areas, or do we go deeper into our own markets? It's really being extremely intentional, looking at what, where the gaps are and where the opportunities are and striking those based on data, a little bit of gut, and then, again, just still being very intentional.
Yeah, because you know what? I'm going to mention this because it's something I learned actually very recently. But in the States, right? All of the individual states have different laws. And for you guys, distribution is a fucking nightmare from what I understand. Every state has a different law. Every state requires a different distributor. Is that right?
That's it. It's the wild, wild west to some degree,
It's
so
crazy, man. People think
yeah.
of America and you think this like huge open door for trade and absolutely no barriers whatsoever. Come in, do business, the American dream. And then for liquor, it still seems like it's stuck to, 60 years ago, more, 80 years ago, right? It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Literally, the prohibition.
And it gets crazier because in some states, it's not even just at the state level. Counties within the states have different ordinances. So
Really?
it can get insane.
And cities as well, right? Apparently
Yep.
even cities sometimes have their own
Absolutely.
set of rules. That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Wow. And like you say, you got the organic certification. That in itself probably has different meanings, different states, maybe different kind of paperwork requirements. Like, you
Yeah.
guys got yourselves in a bit of a pickle, they would say in England.
Mhm.
It's a lot, but I think it's good because I mean, in some ways, we're clear eyed, right, on what it is, right? Because again, you could be having a conversation with someone, and they could say, "Hey, we're brand, we're national, we just came out," and it may sound good, but the reality is that is the worst way to build a brand, right? So it's even being very well versed in the space and what it takes to succeed and knowing, okay, I'm not chasing that shiny object. It may sound interesting, but that is not how you brand build.
Yeah, I mean, they always say anyway, turnover is vanity, profit is sanity. And you got to really understand that in business because it's very easy to chase the dollar or pounds or whatever. And then in the end, you make no money. You've got to be very selective about what market you target, and within the market, which type of client you want to target as well. Because you need the people that appreciate the products, especially when you're dealing with premium.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you encounter this all the time. People that don't really care about the product, they just want to know how much. And if it doesn't reach a price point, they're not interested. And you think, okay, well, do you know what? This is exactly the kind of customer I want to avoid in the first place. So put
Right.
more energy into finding the right people. That price is almost third or fourth down the list. The first thing they want to understand is the quality and the service, and I guess in your case, packaging as well, and the kind of brand. In a whole sea of different products that you're competing with, you want to stand out as much as possible.
Right.
Yeah. And we also see that as opportunity, because there's a lot of space for us to educate people. And if we're going to take the challenge on, we have to know what comes with it. So again, we started talking about organic, and a lot of people don't know what organic is. And then you go and you talk about pricing. So if you think about us, and again, I won't knock any brands that are out there, but there are brands that cost less than us. There are brands that cost more than us. And there's a perception at times, and we do this, everyone does this, is if it costs more, that equates to better quality. Now, you and I know that's not necessarily the case. There's some merit to it based on COGS, cost of goods, but that's a lot of times cost is a marketing piece, right? So for us, it's about educating, right? We're giving you a super premium product, but we're trying to get it to you at a premium price point to introduce you to something so that you can realize that it is better. So we know there's some education that's involved with that. We know at the end of the day, you're not going to convert everyone, and that's never your goal. As you said, once you find your tribe, is then how do you double down on your tribe? But we've converted quite a few people by leaning in and showing that there's some exceptional quality in what we have.
Nice. And I tell you what, I mean, I guess the question is, well, are you going to be developing more products, or is this is it an approach to dominate a little bit more market share in other products, or is it all about vodka, but maybe different types of vodka? What's the kind of
So
strategy
interestingly
behind that?
enough, when Kevin and I first connected, it wasn't even about Blackleaf. It was about the space as a whole. Is there an opportunity to create a pipeline of products that are, that live to what we consider to be top tier? And so we created a company called Proof Theory, as in proof of concept, but it's a bit of a double entendre because you think of alcohol percentage, ABV. And under the Proof Theory umbrella, our whole goal is to create a series of products that we can come out and compete with, anything that's on the market. So, yes, there's a pipeline of products that are underway. We've actually have a couple that we have been somewhat incubating, whether whether through liquid development right now or just even from an ideation standpoint. But the goal is to launch more products. And, who knows, there may be some other SKUs coming underneath the Blackleaf umbrella as well. At the end of the day, it's all about, does it align to going again to that purpose? Does it align with our values? And does it make sense? Because we don't ever want to do it just because we can do it. It has to be a space for it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and it's a very easy kind of direction to go to that doesn't lead anywhere when you dilute yourself too much, I think. And also, you're so new in the whole game, right, that it's pretty good to kind of carve a path. And then once you've got your path, then to bring in other products is going to be a lot easier, once you've established yourselves, right? And you've got the right supply routes, the right brand awareness, you've got the right logistics, production, all of the things that take time to build sometimes in the food industry.
Right. Right. And I think the best way of looking at it in terms of, competing attention, competing priorities is being very, again, clear-eyed about what success looks like
Mm-hmm.
and not compromising on not taking any shortcuts. So if, success requires that we focus fully on one thing, that's what it will require. If there are some synergistic things that, could even expand or one could lend to the other. So again, it's being very clear on, it's not just a gut feeling or something that we do, because again, the product development part, that's the fun part. You could do that, but we've learned the business enough to know what moves the needle. So as we're evaluating anything, it's putting it in that matrix and seeing if it makes sense.
And what's the one thing you wish you knew when you started? I'll go back in time now. What was the moment where you really questioned your life choices and you thought of giving it all up, and you didn't, of course? There must have been a moment like that, right? What was it?
I'd say, being it's there's a certain amount of money that is necessary to succeed, right? You can have the best product, you can have, consumers loving it, you can have retailers loving it, but going from, scaling requires capital.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
cash,
think,
man. Cash is king. You need cash.
yeah, and more so in the spirit space, right? So I think knowing that up front would have been, I don't even know how I would have dealt with it. Um, and maybe it's good we didn't know about it, right? Because
Yeah.
you stumble in and then you solve the problems as you go. But I think that's a conversation. At least when I talk to people that are thinking about the industry, I'm very clear with them. Like, hey, I believe fully that you should chase your dreams, but also know what it requires. And if you are not willing to, develop that muscle of fundraising, and
Yeah.
develop whatever muscle the business requires of you, then you might as well stop now.
And sometimes you need that pressure anyway. That's the other thing, really. I find that sometimes the best breakthroughs for me are always when I've been under the most amount of stress. Because when you're forced to think of other ways that you wouldn't otherwise have thought of, some incredible ideas come through. And, oftentimes those are the things that really take your business to the next level, So it's like, I call it growing pains. You go through these kind of growing pains in business. And of course, a lot of people give up along the way, but every time you go through one of these growth pains, you're learning something. And if you understand what you've learned and you remember that, then that's how you can continue to scale, because you'll make sure that next time that challenge will be hopefully planned for to an extent. So it's not going to knock you down as much. Yeah. And, we're talking about low points and whatnot and difficulties, but what's been your most amazing achievement? What moment have you kind of looked back upon and thought, shit, that's been amazing, or this was amazing, or what kind of achievements have you guys, celebrated that make it all worthwhile?
Something that really comes to mind and is actually something that just happened like last week, to be quite
Nice.
honest with you. So it's somewhat frequent. I mean, recent. But so again, understanding the landscape of the United States and how spirits retail works. We already talked about how complicated it can be. So here's another layer that we didn't talk about. There's open states and there's control states, right? So a control state in the US means that the actual state basically runs the alcohol. So you have to go through the state itself. So Sebastian, you could have if
No way.
in some states you might have a liquor store and you say, hey, I want Blackleaf, and then our distributor just sells you the Blackleaf. It's that simple. In a control state, the state owns the liquor stores and they determine and decide what goes
No
on the
fucking
shelf.
way.
Yes.
That's crazy.
It's welcome to our
What?
world. Welcome to our
Man,
world.
that's like North Korea vibes. What the?
So
That's
so
crazy.
so one of
Wow.
the states that we're in, the state of Virginia, is one of those controlled states. And so again, they could have hundreds of stores, but if the state doesn't want your product in, your product isn't in. It doesn't matter who's asking for it,
Wow.
right?
That's crazy. That's like a mafia.
So we were fortunate to get into Virginia a couple of years back, but we were in a handful of stores. And I would say over the last year and a half, we've truly started to show improve. People were asking for us. We were keeping product on, people, they were selling out the product in a lot of the actual stores to the point where this past October, we actually are running a campaign with Virginia where they added an extra 50 stores on top of 150 stores
Nice.
where we're getting displays. And getting displays is a big thing. That means that they're buying a good amount of product to put on display front and center in the stores, right? So we have 150 of their stores where we're going to be front and center, and we're going to be in an additional 50 stores to make 200 stores where we got placement. And I think
Genius.
that's really validating our the craftsmanship and the authenticity
Well,
that
that's
we can
significant. That's
compete
a
with
big
the
amount.
giants that are out there.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Beautiful. Congratulations. That's amazing. That's a lot of stores.
appreciate it.
Thank you. I think for me, it's probably two things. One, obviously, everyone talks about, hey, their product is award winning. I think if you look at the space, that's how a lot of people market. But I think the awards that we've won are really humbling, right? So, there's this tasting body. It's called the Tasting Alliance, and they do some of the most prestigious competitions. And to give you an example, Tito's, which is a very, very popular brand. I don't know if it's popular in the UK,
No.
but it's a really the most popular vodka brand. They got a double gold, and it was all the rave early on when they were getting established. We've now gotten a double gold from that same entity 9 times,
Nice.
and on top of
Wow.
that, we've gotten 3 platinums. So
Wow.
credibility when we're talking in the industry and we kind of mention these accolades, there's a clear credibility that goes along with it. So I think that's definitely the one moment of pride. And then the other one I would say is there used to be a point where whenever I would see the brand, I know, hey, I gave this to this guy, or this is in this store, like everything. And then when the brand starts taking a life of its own, and
Yeah. And it pops up in places you didn't even know, right?
right, and people are raving about someone saying, "Hey, this is my best vodka," and there's no connection. So it's those moments are really encouraging to hear and see.
Nice, man. Well, that's the true goal in business, is to create that kind of, what's the word, scope, I guess, or coverage with your products that yeah, it's kind of everywhere. Like I remember with my seafood business when we started using distributors, and there was one of my friends or someone was on a holiday somewhere like in the real north of Scotland, and they sent me a photo randomly of some of my products on the shelves there. I'm down right in the south of the UK. And I had no idea, of course. And to me, that was a really cool defining moment, because I thought, wow, shit, look at that.
Right.
Now, this is something that's going to grow by itself. It's like letting a kid go into the real world. You know what I mean? You've nurtured it. You've taught it what it needs. You've given it everything it needs to be on its own 2 legs, and it's running away and doing well. So yeah, I get that. I get that. It's your baby, basically. Your baby developing.
Right. Exactly.
Nice. And in terms of like, how do you manage? I was just thinking about this, because with all these kind of laws, like storage, maybe, like how does it work? So you import your product from France, and where does it sit? Do you have to put it somewhere specifically? Is it your warehouse, or does it go directly to distributors? How does that whole process work?
Yeah. So we warehouse. We have an independent warehouse that we work with. So when the product arrives, it's warehouse, and that's in Baltimore. And then from there, we ship to the various distributor warehouses. So
Okay, fine. So like fairly smooth operation. So does that mean that you guys don't need such a big team then, in terms that you've got other distributors and other companies doing the kind of heavy lifting, shall we say, and then you guys can concentrate more on the kind of sales, marketing, logistics, I guess the red tape, the kind of paperwork for distribution, state, importing, like who does what? That's the other question. Like, do you guys, because it must be quite admin heavy, right? To do uh alcohol and organic from abroad, into different states. Who manages all that? Who does the admin, if you like?
Yeah, to answer both of the questions. So the first part, I think we are very lean because we found opportunities to use third party contractors where possible, right? So all the tasks are being handled, but a lot of them are being handled by our third party partners. So whether that's shipping and logistics, supply chain management, compliance. Obviously, we have a legal team that we work with. We have PR team that we work with. We have experiential marketing team. A lot of them are contracted partners. So it allows us to be a bit nimble, and running a lean operation. The reality is, where the rubber hits the road, Kevin and I are kind of overseeing the majority of what's going on. We offload what we can, and what we can't, we have our fingerprint on it to some level, to some degree. Obviously, as we scale, those numbers will start to shift a bit. So, for instance, our sales team, we have folks in some of the heavier markets that we are in. As we start to scale those different markets, then we'll add to that team. Some of the folks that are maybe third parties, we may actually bring them in house eventually. It's all about being, again, I keep saying the word intentional, but I can't think of a better word, being very intentional, not just about how we sell our product, but how we manage the business behind moving our product.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're quite fortunate. I mean, are you guys using kind of automation, AI? Like, there's so many cool like tools that we can use now. And throughout my time, in the last 3 years in particular, I don't know if I told you, about 3 years ago, I almost went bankrupt with my business. Coming out of COVID was really difficult, and I had a very, very difficult decision to make of, get rid of 50 people, 50% of my workforce, or close down. And of course, difficult decision, but I kept the business. I had to get rid of half my team. But I still had to run the business, right, with half the people there. And fortunately, it was at a time when automation, AI was kind of coming, and I was really lucky to have jumped on that kind of bandwagon and adopted a lot of automation, AI, like systems, like from everything. So all of our orders come in, they get put into our platform by AI. Whether you leave a voicemail, email, text, everything is converted automatically. And I was able to continue to handle the kind of load that we had with half the team, and we've kept it like that since. It's been incredible. So yeah, so the point I'm trying to make is that actually these days you can run a very lean operation. There are a lot of systems, tools out there that can help you kind of achieve an enormous amount of growth without actually increasing that headcount.
Right.
Too much. And I think that's quite a nice option these days that we have that wasn't available when I started in business, that's for sure.
Right. And one watch out for, your audience, I would say, is outsourcing and getting lean operations and optimizing, I think, is critical, but understanding that core function. And I think with us, because we did everything, we literally did supply chain, soup to nuts, everything, right? So even as we have these partners that we're engaged with that, take the burden off, it's like, it like the back of your hand. So you can, because at the end of the day, no one's going to care about your business the way you are. So you still have to be able to say, hey, the reality is I don't want to be spending my time on that, but that doesn't mean outsource the knowledge, right? Source the oversight. Like, you still need to be really, really tapped into the business.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, when are you coming to the UK with your vodka?
I would say soon.
Yeah.
I
Do it.
think that we again, going back to intentional growth, we're US focused now. Lately, we've been thinking a little bit more about what international looks and feels like. But I think the reality is, again, it could be a shiny object if not done right. So we need to make sure that we're securing the right partners, really understand what it takes to be successful in the market. It's a very measured approach. So the desire is there to, we have global ambitions, but as we think about new markets, as we think about international, it's really making sure we have the right partnerships and resources in place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show and hearing how Blackleaf Vodka has grown from an idea into a global brand, really, even though you're not global yet. I mean, you certainly play a global game. And, to be defined by the quality and kind of intention, like you say, is incredible. What really stands out to me is how much you care about the product and what you put into it, how focused you are on the integrity of the brand and the customer experience. But as with all growing brands, the challenge is obviously scaling, and that level of detail to continue with is difficult without, losing focus. So yeah, I really wish you the best of luck, guys. And you're doing a great job. And I look forward to trying this vodka, whether it's in the States or one day over this side of the pond in the UK or maybe even Europe.
No, that we're looking forward to being able to sit down with you all at some point and having a sip or two.
Nice, nice. And listen, plug in your business now. Like, where can we find you? Do you have any social channels? Like, how can people find you? So anyone flying to the States, how do we find your Blackleaf Vodka?
Yeah, I mean, I think the easiest place to go to is the website, so you can check us out at blackleafvodka.co, not .com, .co, and that's black as in the color, leaf as in on a tree,
Yeah.
.co. And then Instagram as well, we're at Blackleaf Vodka, and if you're interested in some of the bigger things that we're doing under the Proof Theory umbrella, that's the same thing, so it's prooftheory.co.
Nice. Well, thank you, listeners, for tuning in. And if you like it, please subscribe and like, and pass this on to friends, family, and just generally give us some love. Thank you all, and we'll see you on the next one.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Sebastian.